You're just making a pathetic excuse to get Terry back, aren't you? If you really want to be with him that badly, come on over. I'll hire you and work you to the bone, so if you're fine being a slave, I'll give you my new address. How far is this woman mistaken, and why is she so excited all by herself? Arguing any further is pointless, so I might as well hint at the truth. Well then, it's fine if I divorce my unemployed husband. I'm busy with work, so you take care of him. You don't even know what happened to Terry's company, you clueless person. Still acting tough, huh? You loser. Lynn is still mistaken, but she'll understand eventually. That I've made a wrong decision now. Anyway, I've decided to divorce Terry, who kept his unemployment a secret and even cheated. But it seems disadvantageous to fight Terry and his people alone. So, I think I'll ask for help from someone reliable, and I called someone. My name is Yvonne, and I'm 43 years old. Before marriage, I worked for 15 years as a sales clerk in a men's clothing store. The executive of a wholesale company that did business with the store is now my husband, Terry. Even though we met at work, I thought he was a quiet man at first, but gradually we got to know each other, and he started inviting me for coffee. It seems he took a liking to me in secret. Terry is my age, and his father owns the wholesale company. He's supposed to take over his father's company and become its CEO someday. Then one day, after we had met several times, "If it's okay with you, would you consider dating me with marriage in mind?" When Terry said that to me, I felt like I was on top of the world. However, Terry's father was strongly opposed. I lost my mother when I was young, and my father who raised me has also passed away. So, he said that our family backgrounds were not compatible, and that I couldn't possibly be fit to be the wife of the next CEO. But Terry retorted, "Dad, you divorced Mom, didn't you? Because of that, she struggled and passed away in her 60s. So, you have no right to nitpick about who I marry." After being told this, Terry's father suddenly fell silent, and he did not oppose our marriage anymore. I was shocked as this was the first time I heard about it. Afterwards, Terry told me about how after his parents divorced, he and his mom supported each other and lived together. It seems they had quite a hard time. That's why Terry says he wants to make the person he marries happy. Hearing this story made me think, this man will cherish me for life, and I decided to follow him. Then, at the age of 37, I got married. Dreaming of a sweet married life with Terry, I felt happier than anyone else. But reality didn't turn out so well. At Terry's wish, I quit my job when we got married and became a homemaker. I woke up early in the morning and made balanced, nutritious meals. After sending Terry off, I did the laundry, cleaned, and perfected all the housework. I thought if I worked hard, he would surely be pleased. While thinking this, I spent my days fulfilled. Despite that, Terry was kind and cheerful at the beginning of our marriage. But as the years went by, first 1 year, then 2, his conversation lessened. By the 3rd year, he began to treat it as a given that a wife should do all the household chores, almost ordering me around with a flick of his chin. "Hey, can you get the newspaper? Hey! There's still dust on top of the dresser. Are you cleaning properly?" That was just the beginning. He would ask me to rearrange the furniture, tasks that would normally require a man's help with heavy lifting. He expected me to move everything myself. For reference, I'm only 5 feet tall and not particularly strong. Terry, who is over 8 inches taller and robust, just thought about the room layout. I couldn't stand it anymore and complained. "Hey, don't make a small woman like me carry all these heavy things. Isn't heavy lifting supposed to be a man's job?" But no matter what I said, Terry would sulk and retort, "What are you talking about? I'm the future CEO. It's ridiculous to make me do this heavy labor. It's your role to carry these heavy items." What a thing to say. As if I were being treated like a slave. How did Terry turn into this kind of husband after 3 years of marriage? I wondered if perhaps the reason was that we hadn't had children yet, which might be causing his frustration. I, too, have dreamed of a life with children. With that in mind, I went to see a doctor and got tested. Ideally, I would have liked Terry's cooperation, but I wasn't in a position to bring it up yet. For now, the tests showed that I was perfectly normal, and I began to focus on getting pregnant. But no matter how long it took, there were no signs of pregnancy. I thought it might be time to talk to Terry about it, so I brought up the subject of trying to conceive. However, the response I got from Terry was unbelievable. Huh? Trying to conceive? You still think you can have kids at your age? What? Nowadays, it's not uncommon for women over 40 to have children. Terry burst out laughing at my response. I've never heard such a thing. Just look around. Most moms with little kids are in their late 20s or mid-30s. Hey, where did you get that information? Don't tell me it's from a scene in a TV show or something. Yes, Terry has no kids and there are no little children among his relatives either. So, there's no way he would have current information about mothers with young children. At most, he might have seen a few young mothers by chance. Terry talks about this info from 2 or 3 people as if it's common knowledge. Why is he so against discussing trying to conceive? Curious about this, I asked him again. Well, regardless, don't you want children? I'm not really interested. I was speechless at his words. Married, yet not wanting children. I couldn't believe Terry's thoughts and asked him again. Why not? When you're married, isn't it better to have kids? Look, even your father would be happy if he had a grandchild. I tried to respect Terry's position when I said that, but his reaction was lukewarm. Terry was silent for a while, then slowly began to speak. I never really wanted to take over my dad's company after he split from my mom. I got married just because I was worried about what people would think. They might think the son of divorced parents isn't cut out for marriage. What? So, you're saying you married me just to keep up appearances because you care about what others think? That's awful. Knowing the truth was a shock to me. Then Terry shouted as if a fire had been lit under him. Shut up! What do you know? He yelled at me as if he was lashing out, then stormed out of the room. What exactly does he expect me to understand in this situation? Since then, perhaps out of anger, Terry started buying his own food and stopped contributing to the household expenses. Unsure of what to do, I reached out to my dependable aunt for advice. My aunt, my mother's sister, has cherished me since I was little, as I have no mother. My aunt, who has been devoted to her career, is still working hard at 68 and has never married. When I shared my troubles with her, she listened sympathetically. Oh dear, that sounds tough. If Terry doesn't want children, why don't you try working, Yvonne? It might be a good distraction from staying at home. My aunt may be right. So, I decided to work at the clothing manufacturing company my aunt runs. When I told Terry about it, he responded with an indifferent expression. Anyway, it's just a small company run by your aunt who's over 60, and you're probably just working part-time there. Well, if it's just enough for you to make a living, that's probably just right. I was a bit upset by Terry's dismissive reaction to my capable aunt, but I didn't talk back. Anyway, from now on, I just need to follow my aunt's example and dedicate myself to my job. And then, after I had started working, one day during my break, I was looking at the news on my smartphone and saw some shocking information. Terry's company had gone bankrupt. I thought about asking Terry when I got home, but since I started working, he hardly spoke to me, so there was no opportunity to bring it up. Terry had not mentioned anything about his company either. Since there was nothing else I could do, I just left it be. Since he hadn't been contributing to the household expenses anyway, it didn't really affect me. Terry didn't talk about the company, but he started eating the meals I prepared at home. Apparently, he was struggling with the cost of food due to the lack of income. After this situation continued for about 2 or 3 years, one day, I received a call on my smartphone. When I looked at the screen, it was an unfamiliar number. However, thinking it might be someone related to work, I answered the call. Hey Yvonne, long time no see. Guess who I am? Suddenly, I heard the cheerful voice of a woman, and after thinking about it, it sounded somewhat familiar.
Lynn?
Right. How have you been, Yvonne? You haven't changed your phone number since before you got married, so I'm glad it's connected. The caller was Lynn, a close friend from high school. Back in high school, she was very serious, but after high school, I went to university and Lynn went to community college. Lynn entered the workforce earlier and somehow became quite sophisticated over the years. Her lifestyle became flashy, and she gradually drifted away from me. However, we kept in touch occasionally as best friends until I got married. The sudden contact made me feel something might be up.
Long time no talk. So, what's up?
Then, as if Lynn was gauging the situation, she asked. Actually, I'm gonna be near your house for work in the next 2 or 3 days. So I was wondering if I could stop by your place. I hesitated for a moment. Right now, with Terry's company having gone bankrupt, I don't know when he will be at home. Just then, Terry happened to walk by in the background. When I looked back at him, Terry started saying, "Is someone coming over? I don't mind." Lynn must have heard his voice over the phone because she suddenly got more excited. "Was that your husband just now? The one who was going to be the CEO? It's okay for me to come over? I'm really looking forward to seeing what a future CEO's home looks like. I've always been curious." It's hard to say no when someone is that enthusiastic. I got completely swept up in Lynn's pace, and we arranged for her to come over the day after tomorrow in the afternoon. On the day, Lynn arrived at our house with a very curious look on her face. Terry, whom I thought would be out, was inexplicably at home. Moreover, although he's usually curt with just the two of us, he was smiling pleasantly at the door. "Hey, you're Lynn, right? I met you once before the wedding. You brought a gift since you couldn't attend the ceremony."
Oh my, your husband remembers me? That makes me so happy.
Suddenly, the two of them were chatting amicably. I felt like I was being left out. However, after chatting for a while, Terry soon went back to the bedroom. I led Lynn into the living room and made some coffee. While I was doing this, Lynn sat on the living room sofa and looked around the house as if she was inspecting everything.
"This is really a nice house. The furniture must be expensive, right?" "Not really,"
I answered modestly. In reality, most of the furnishings here were bought by me since Terry isn't one to keep many possessions. When we first got married, there was nothing, so I gradually bought these things over the 3 years since I started working. Regardless, Lynn didn't seem to care about that and kept throwing one question after another. Mostly about our relationship as a couple. Given the situation, I found it hard to respond and had to beat around the bush. After about 3 hours of grilling me with questions, Lynn finally said goodbye to Terry and left our house. After she left, it felt like the calm after a storm. But that night, Terry suddenly said he was going out and left the house. He didn't come back for a whole week. During work, I thought to myself, if he doesn't come back today, maybe I should call him? I hadn't reached out before due to our estrangement, but now I was genuinely worried. So, after work, I hurried home. When I arrived, the house felt unusually spacious. Upon closer inspection, many household items were missing. Just as I feared a burglary might have happened, Lynn called. "Hello? Are you worried because your husband left?" "Actually, he's been with me this whole week."
"What? What do you mean by that?"
I remembered how Lynn had been oddly curious about my relationship with Terry. I asked,
"You're not living together, are you?"
"I just had Terry's belongings moved to my new place."
"What? Those belongings are all mine. Please return them. Anyway, tell me where you are right now."
I was worried about Terry, but I was more upset that my things had been taken without my consent. "What are you talking about? You were being supported, so there's no way you could afford all that stuff by yourself. You're really putting on a brave face." Lynn scoffed. This woman seems to know nothing. That I was the one supporting him. "You don't understand anything. There's nothing of Terry's among those things." I just want my own things back. Are you trying to make excuses to get Terry back? If you really want to be with him that much, come over. I'll hire you and put you to work. If you're okay with being a slave, I'll give you my new address. How far does this woman misunderstand and celebrate by herself? Arguing any more is pointless, so I might as well hint at the truth. Well then, it's fine if you want me to divorce my unemployed husband. I'm busy with work, so you take care of him. You don't even know what happened to Terry's company, you clueless person. You're still talking tough, you loser. Lynn still seems to be misunderstanding, but she'll realize eventually that she is the one making the wrong choices. I just replied with a yeah, and hung up the phone. Anyway, I've decided to divorce Terry, who kept his unemployment a secret and even cheated. However, fighting Terry and his group alone seems disadvantageous. So, I thought I should seek help from someone reliable and called my aunt. My aunt, though never married, has overcome many relationship troubles and resolved disputes between others over the years. She's really dependable in situations like this. I explained the situation in detail over the phone. Then, my aunt gave me some sharp advice. If it's come to that, there's no choice but to divorce. But first, you need solid proof of Terry's infidelity. You should hire a private investigator to gather evidence. Having a detailed investigation report will help you. My aunt really knows her stuff. I immediately started following her advice. Since I didn't even know where Terry was living, I first hired a detective. The detective quickly identified their address. Thanks to detailed surveillance, dozens of photos proving the infidelity were also taken. An even more surprising fact came to light. The detective tailing Lynn captured her not with Terry, but meeting with other men. And not just one or two, but several wealthy-looking men. He had kept all the evidence photos well documented. It's shocking to see Lynn, who was so serious during her student days, turn into such a woman with poor relationships with men. It might have started when she became a working adult. I discussed these facts with my aunt. My aunt, who has adored me since I was little and knew Lynn from our high school days. She was puzzled as to why Lynn had changed so much. There might have been a trigger for such a change. Maybe she got involved with bad people. My aunt suggested. That reminded me of something. Actually, the company Lynn joined as a fresh graduate was rumored to be a very toxic workplace. Maybe that has something to do with it. I remember she mentioned something about her boss, and she quit soon after starting, so I never heard the company name. My aunt was nodding along as I spoke, her expression turning into an I see. As if she had grasped something from her many years of life experience. I think I have a good idea of what's going on. Since we've gathered evidence of the affair and her misconduct, let's move on to the next plan. Then, along with my aunt, I decided to confront Lynn at her new home. Unannounced. Lynn and Terry were visibly shocked when I suddenly appeared.
Yvonne! How did you find out about this place?
Oh? Did you think I was just going to cry? I've had everything about your current situation investigated. I retorted with a sneer and scattered the photos taken by the detective in front of Lynn. There were photos of Terry and Lynn arm in arm leaving this house, and some even captured them in a passionate embrace. No, that's not all. There were countless photos of Lynn coming out of hotels with various unknown men. Seeing these, Terry grabbed one of the photos, turning pale.
What is this? Lynn, how many men have you been seeing? Was it all a lie when you said you loved only me? It's a misunderstanding. Yvonne, you're just making fake photos because you're mad at me.
Lynn stammered, desperately trying to blame me. All these photos clearly show men and women being intimate. Do they really think I could create such fake images without being a professional? All these were taken by a detective I hired. I found out after investigating that you've been chasing after wealthy men for over 20 years since you started working. As I said this, Terry glared at Lynn.
Is that true? Am I just one of those men?
I almost burst out laughing at his remark. After all, nowadays, he's just an unemployed guy, no longer the worker he once was. Lynn could not respond and just hung her head in silence. Watching her, my aunt spoke up. You can't really say anything back, can you? The trigger for you to start falling for wealthy men involved someone as surprising as Terry. Right? Am I on the mark? Startled by my aunt's question, Lynn looked up with a "why would you know that" expression. Then, from the direction of the entrance, a man's voice was heard. Is anyone here? Why did you suddenly call me to this place? It was my father-in-law who appeared. In fact, last night I had emailed him saying, Terry is cheating, so we need to talk. Please come here tomorrow, giving him this address. My father-in-law seemed indifferent about Terry's cheating. However, I had also mentioned that divorce might be discussed, so I wanted him there. Observing the surroundings, my father-in-law was visibly shocked when he saw Lynn.
Lynn! Why are you here?
At his surprise, Terry looked confused.
Dad, you know Lynn? No. I don't know her,
he said, hastily shaking his head trying to deny it. My aunt chuckled and then asked. Mr. Kirk, the former CEO of Kirk Corporation. About 20 years ago, you divorced your wife after your affair with a female employee became known, right? Wasn't that woman here, Lynn? My father-in-law's face turned pale, and he kept shaking his head. But then, Lynn, who had been silent until now, suddenly grinned deviously. That's right. This man was my former boss who toyed with me then discarded me. Because of him, I was fired and couldn't find another job. So, I was determined to catch a wealthy man and make myself happy. I see. So that's why you approached several wealthy men? But what about Terry? He's a married man and moreover, a friend's husband. What was the point of getting close to him? Indeed, that was a good point. I had not done anything to earn Lynn's grudge. Then Lynn answered my aunt's question. When I heard Yvonne was getting married, I intended to attend the wedding because we were friends. But when I heard the company's name, it was the company that fired me. When I heard that, I decided I wanted revenge someday against the CEO, so I planned to ruin Terry's life, who is the heir.
So that's why you didn't attend the wedding?
Knowing Lynn's truth made me feel complex. Despite being angry, Lynn was carrying a dark past and struggling. Yes. Besides, I was jealous that you, Yvonne, had made a wealthy and happy marriage without me. So, I didn't care what happened to you, I wanted to mess up Terry's life. If rumors spread about the next CEO, the company would be gone. Hoping to awaken Lynn, who was thoroughly embittered, I told her she was mistaken. Lynn. You didn't understand anything. There was no need for you to do such pointless things. Without any intervention from you, this father and son were already in a downfall. Hearing this, Lynn seemed genuinely unaware of Terry and her father-in-law's current situation, her eyes widening in surprise. Then, looking at Terry, I said with a look of disbelief. Terry, how have you managed to keep your unemployment a secret for so long? With no money, how on earth have you been living?
Yvonne, you knew? That our company had gone bankrupt?
Terry's surprise made my aunt and I nearly burst out laughing. It had been all over the news, there was no way he wouldn't know. The only one who wouldn't know was Lynn, who had no interest in the news. Also, since losing his job, Terry had distanced himself from all media, completely unaware that his company was being talked about. Finally grasping the situation, Lynn was stunned.
What, then what have I been doing all this time?
She muttered in a daze before glaring at Terry.
Terry! Why didn't you tell me the company had gone under? Oh. That's why you've been selling off the household items you brought over, isn't it? What?
Apparently, Terry had been selling the household items I had bought with my earnings. Some of those were my favorite pieces of furniture. Without any shame, Terry brazenly said.
Well, I had no money, what choice did I have? I was also surprised that Yvonne had bought such expensive household items. What kind of job were you doing to earn that much?
At my boiling point, I let loose about my work. I've been working hard as a full-time employee at Turner Trading Company, which is owned by my aunt, since Terry stopped contributing to our living expenses. I've been entrusted with responsible tasks and get paid well. So, I've had no trouble managing without any financial support from you." Terry's eyes widened when he heard the name of the company.
Turner Trading Company, isn't that one of the top garment manufacturers in this area?
Indeed, Turner Trading Company was founded by my maternal grandfather. My aunt, my mother's younger sister, took over. It seemed Terry was unaware that it was my family's business. Yes. Someone here was calling me a loser, but I said, shifting my gaze to Lynn and continued more assertively. I became the executive at Turner Trading Company because of my long years of experience working in a garment store, and I earned $10,000 a month. So, I've been the one supporting our household finances for years. Lynn and Terry were silent, unable to respond. Then, my father-in-law, looking like he wanted to say something, looked at my aunt.
Turner Trading used to do business with us. My father was a close friend of the previous CEO.
Yes. And 20 years ago, when you took over as CEO, your affairs with women led the previous CEO to end business with your company. No doubt, the loss of business with Turner Trading contributed to the decline in my father-in-law's company's fortunes. Perhaps that's why my aunt had an inkling when she heard Lynn's story. It seems she considered hiring the woman who was fired because of the CEO back then, but she gave up after hearing about her repeated misconduct. Turner Trading Company prioritizes customer trust above all, so they decided not to hire someone who could cause problems. My father-in-law, looking apologetic, said to my aunt,
"I had no idea you were the successor of Turner Trading Company. I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused back then."
"No worries. I knew CEO Kirk would be at Yvonne's wedding, so I attended just as an aunt and kept quiet about the company connection. I thought it wouldn't be revealed unless I said something. Luckily, you hardly remembered my face." After saying this, my aunt looked away from my father-in-law. They no longer had any business dealings, and she sensed that their familial relationship would likely dissolve as well. My father-in-law, seeing her demeanor, chose not to say anything more. It was my turn. Although I feel a bit of sympathy for Lynn, who schemed without knowing everything about Terry, I cannot forgive her. No matter the circumstances, she had an affair with my husband and even took household items without permission. Lynn. Regardless of the circumstances, I will be demanding the household items from both you and Terry," I said sternly, causing Lynn to grimace as if she had bitten into something bitter.
"I was deceived by Terry too. Besides, it was Terry who took and sold the household items without asking. It has nothing to do with me. If anything, I should be the one receiving compensation from Terry for being deceived."
"What are you talking about? I wasn't trying to deceive anyone. I just found it hard to bring up that the company had gone under. Besides, you were using me to get back at my father. If anything, I was the one who was deceived." As they both tried to shift the blame onto each other, my aunt stepped in between them.
"Enough with the ugly arguing. Whatever the reasons, Lynn, what you did was clearly seduce a married man. Both of you owe Yvonne compensation. And Terry, in addition to the affair, you took Yvonne's belongings without permission, so you better make restitution for that too."
It was like a mother breaking up a fight between children. I might have been overwhelmed by their intensity if my aunt hadn't been there, so I was truly grateful she was present. Seeing their resigned, almost tearful acceptance, they both hung their heads.
"Damn. With such a strong ally on Yvonne's side, I stand no chance. How am I supposed to pay any money while I'm unemployed? I don't even have money."
Lynn lamented, but it looked like we could finally settle this matter. I decided to have Lynn and Terry pay me compensation for the household items. Then, Terry and I finalized our divorce. We sold the house we lived in and split the proceeds. For now, I decided to stay with my aunt. Thank you, Aunt. I might not have been able to resolve this on my own. You've always been such a reliable force in my life. Oh please, don't make me out to be some kind of hero. I'm just a fragile woman myself. My aunt jokes, and we both burst out laughing. finally, peace was returning to my life. After the divorce, Terry decided to live with his father. Even though his father was not the best, he was still his father, and Terry probably just wanted to depend on him. Despite that, Terry claimed he would take care of his father from now on and tried to start a business. However, life doesn't always work out as planned. Unfortunately, his business failed, and they ended up in debt. This news became well known within my company, since many former employees of Terry's father's company had joined us. It seems someone living nearby was spreading rumors about Terry and his father. As for Lynn, since she was unemployed, she couldn't afford the rent for the condo she and Terry had planned to live in and had to move back to her parents' home. Her parents, who had long spent their days frivolously, finally put her to work. Lynn's family owns a farm. Although she had resisted helping out at home before, her parents forced her into farm work. Under the watchful eyes of her parents, she couldn't escape. Moreover, knowing her poor track record with men, her parents forbade her from dating. They were even arranging a marriage for her with someone who would take over their farm. I heard about Lynn's situation from my aunt. She mentioned that Lynn's parents, well known in the area, had approached her to arrange a marriage for their daughter. They shared all the details about Lynn during that visit. My aunt, not wanting to upset the parents, kept quiet about Lynn's attempt to steal Terry from me. Recently, my aunt decided to step down from her position as CEO of the company and nominated me as her successor. Although she will step back from the daily operations, she will continue to oversee my progress as the chairman. I plan to continue developing this company, which I've inherited from my aunt, even further. As someone who leads a busy life with no time for a relationship with a man, it seems unlikely that my dream of having children will be fulfilled. Instead, I am now focusing on the development of new children's clothing lines. By interacting with our customers and their families as if they were my own, and providing products that suit their tastes, I hope to bring smiles to many children and their parents. This commitment to my work serves as a bridge to my dreams.